And I'm Dan.
And we are coming at you live from the new Asher furniture. So I don't know if you can see those couches, but they're brand new, so we're really excited. Today we are going to be talking about diversity and inclusion. So we thought that we would just change it up a little bit and have a video instead of you guys just looking at a PowerPoint this week. So, yeah.
So the learning outcomes we have for today's lesson are to have a better understanding of privilege and how it affects your identity and the identity of those you know.
Next thing that we're going to be talking about today is bias and the difference between implicit and explicit bias and really what that means for you all as RAs.
The next learning outcome we have is to better understand when and why silence isn't golden and feel desire and passion to speak up in those moments.
So another thing that we want you guys to really understand are that these concepts are very important, not just in society at large with whatever job or relationships you guys find yourselves a part in, but also it's very pivotal that you understand these things as a part of ResLife here at University of the Cumberlands. So, yeah.
We do have a few disclaimers before we get into today's lesson. The first one being that these will not be comfortable subjects.
Another thing for you all to know is that me and Dan are not experts on these topics, so what we really want to do is start the conversation about diversity and inclusion, and that way we could further better our jobs here at as a part of ResLife. So
the discussion only begins here. So we will now get into the lesson itself.
So the first thing we're going to talk about is privilege. And you all really understand this more when you take the privilege assessment as a part of this lesson. But privilege is defined as a special right, advantage, or immunity granted or available only to a particular group or person or group of people. So
we do have a few questions that we would like you to think on after you have completed the assessment that we have for you, but before you go into your discussion post. A few of these questions that we want you to think about are, why is the concept of privilege important?
Another thing to think about is how does privilege create potential barriers between relationships, not just personally, but also professionally?
Another question we want you to think about is, how can you avoid them at work?
And then essentially why is the concept of privilege so important?
How can we use these identities to empower others who don't share them with us?
Another thing to know about privilege is that you don't ask for your privilege, and it's something that you don't earn. It's something that is essentially given to you. So it's not something that you ask for. So one thing we want you all to know is you don't have to feel shame for the different privileges that you do have, because that is something that is outside of your control, generally, most of the time. So
this is the end of the privilege part of the lesson. So again, remember to go back, do the privilege test itself, and then use that test that you took and those results that you get and the questions that we just asked you to then better have a discussion post. The next part we are going to go into is implicit bias.
So again, a very wordy definition of implicit bias is implicit bias refers to the attitudes or stereotypes that affect our understanding, actions, and decisions in an unconscious manner. So
we are going to do a small exercise so that you guys have a better picture of what implicit bias itself is. So Leah is going to describe a person, and then while she's describing them, we want you guys as viewers to picture what that person looks like, acts like, who they really are as a person.
Mm-hmm. So the first person I'm going to describe is they were suspended in 8th grade for breaking rules to steal extra benefits for him and his friends. They also dropped out of college after 2 years but still the money flows. So the first person that we want you guys to think about is a college dropout and suspended in 8th grade. The second person that I want you guys to think about, he was born in Germany and served as a first chair violinist for the Terry Sanford Orchestra in high school. He graduated high school with a 4.2 GPA and college with a degree in business with a 3.8 GPA. And now he is a successful entrepreneur. So the first person is the high school dropout, or the college dropout, college dropout. The second person is the first chair violinist with the high GPA.
Yes.
Yeah.
So the first person, as you think about that person, when I first did this, I was thinking like someone who wasn't successful in life, that even though the money flows, how do they get that money flow? It seems like some way that's maybe illegal or wrong. But in reality, that person is actually Bill Gates. And then when I'm thinking of person two, I'm thinking of like someone who's really well off. You know, they are good in classical music. They're successful. They're an entrepreneur of multiple nonprofit organizations. But in reality, that person is J. Cole.
So basically, regardless of what you were thinking these two people were, implicit biases really do affect many, many decisions about what we do, and a lot of that is subconsciously. That's a definition of implicit, is something that you don't even realize that you're doing. And those decisions really do affect where we go to school, where we live, who we're friends with, and just really impacts a lot of decisions that we make, even without us knowing.
So we all have implicit bias, and this does not make you a bad person. There are bigger systems at work and thousands of messages every day from different sources that reinforce these biases that you may have.
The big thing is we want you guys to choose daily to not be okay with those biases, and to really strive to know who your residents are, and really strive to make that choice of saying, okay, I'm not just going to assume this about this person without really getting to know them. And then when you don't speak up about those biases too, and be vulnerable in that, then you just give more power to the bias itself. And that kind of leads us into the third kind of topic in this session, which is about silence and not speaking up.
So the first part of silence is that silence is never golden. You should take a stand and speak up when you notice someone is showing their implicit bias. Does it have to be in a mean way? No, but you should correct them. Make sure that they know that they're being implicit biased.
So for a couple of real world examples, first one would be, say you're at the Starbucks on campus and you hear a male athlete talking derogatory to a female student, and you could tell that the female student is very obviously uncomfortable. That would be a good situation, if you're comfortable with that, to intervene and speak up on behalf of the female student. Another different example would be, say a resident comes to you and says something with confidential information about a situation that they're going through. One thing about silence is that in some situations it's not okay to just keep that to yourself, but also there's a healthy way to do that with being confidential, so not sharing this information with your ResLife staff and with your friends, only sharing that with your director or the director on duty at the time. And we're really going to get more into confidentiality too when you guys get here for your in-seat orientation. But it's just something to think about. So, yeah. So really what we want you all to know is that no matter what, our students are having difficult conversations, either with us or each other all the time. And we want you guys to know that speaking up helps you guide those conversations so that people can further grow and not just keep dwelling in the bad about different situations. And we really want to see you guys be advocates for those who can't advocate for themselves. And we as directors too are really prepared to help equip you with what that looks like on a day-to-day basis for sure.
So remember that silence is a privilege that many don't have. So racism, bias, and hatred will not be silenced, and neither should we.
So in order to kind of wrap up this discussion, what we really want you all to know is that this isn't to get everybody to agree on the same thing, because we know that people come from many different environments, come from many different home lives, and I think UC is just a very diverse place in general, and what we as RAs and ResLife staff need to know is that how do we relate well with our residents? And so what we want you all to know is through the privilege test is we want you guys to first understand who you are and understand what you're bringing to the table as part of ResLife, but then using that as a tool to further reach out to your residents and say, look, I don't understand this about you, but I want to, and just being open and inviting in that way. So, yeah.
Again, thank you for listening to this lesson. Remember to complete the discussion post along with again,
I'm keeping this in here, so.
Yeah. Basically, do the work. If not, if you can't do the work, call your director. And, gosh, there was something else I wanted to say. Oh, what was I gonna say?
stay healthy.
Well,